Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about a job that we're doing, a classical job, thinking about moldings, thinking about how to plan moldings in a traditional house. Come join me. I don't know if you've watched my Wednesday design videos, and you'll see this house in Idaho where we fixed, through using of classical details, a house that wants to be very traditional and using historic precedent to make it better. Well, one of the asks from this owner was to help him determine the interiors of his house. And so really, I want to do a couple things. I want to show you how to do that, but I want to talk first about kind of the framework for a Georgian interior and what the opportunities are and kind of the spread that happens. Because in the Georgian period, so if we're talking Georgian moldings, okay, we're really talking in America, okay, 1740 to 1780, okay? So it's not a long period of time. Now remember, if you're in England, there's 3 Georgian kings, King Georges, right? And so that lasts all the way up to the neoclassical era and even before this. So this is our Georgian period. King George is shorter because of the Revolutionary War. We want to disassociate with the Georgian king, and becomes our federal period, okay? So in this period of time, you have, if you're in America trying to build a house in 1760, okay, if you're in Philadelphia, which has a lot of money, which is our biggest city, which is the New York of the time, the LA of the time, it's where all the money is and everything else, you're building a very different Georgian house than if you're in New Hampshire, okay? No slant to New Hampshire there, but just in a rural area, if you're not near a main city. And then, of course, the things that were being built in England, in London, are very different. And so I'm doing it this way because the English rooms are nicest, okay? And you'll see these pictures for that I'm showing you from the Philadelphia Museum, has a number of English Georgian rooms that you can go visit and you can go see. And what you'll see is when you look at those rooms, okay, is they have a lot more carving, okay? So there's more ornamentation going on in those rooms. The organization of the materials and organization and the detailing, the scale of the rooms is much bigger. You've got 12-foot ceilings, you've got ornamentation, this is the ornament, you've got scale, ornament, and you'll see rooms in there that have a lot of stained grade wood. So they had the kind of money, they had the kind of wealth that they could do the best of the best. We, in America, I don't want to say there aren't any, but there are very few stained grade rooms in that Georgian period, okay? Because one, the level of skill that it required to do it, the quality of wood, the cost, okay? The cost would have been crazy. And so we don't have many stained grade woods if we just talk about this. But we have, in this area of Philly, we have kind of the nicest American rooms that are being built in kind of this just Georgian area are built in Philadelphia. And then out in New Hampshire, your only reason you're Georgian is because we're looking back at it, and your house or your tavern was built in 1760. So it's done in the Georgian period. It may not even have Georgian moldings in it. It may be very rustic. And so there's this sliding scale of what's available during that time. So as we look at the moldings and the interior on this house, I'm first going to that client saying, do you want this kind of English high ornamentation, kind of crazy kind of thing, like you might see at Carter's Grove in Virginia? Or do you want kind of the highest American version? Or do you kind of want more of a rustic version? Now, if you go to Winter Tour and you study my videos on Winter Tour, you'll remember rooms like Tappahannock, okay? And you'll see Cecil bedroom, okay? Those rooms have a mantle. There's not even a mantle shelf in those things. They're very rustic. They're very simple, okay? Full paneled walls in one area, or full paneled walls, but the most simplified version of what a Georgian room is, okay? And if you go to maybe even the tavern in New Hampshire, might not even be paneled walls. It may just be boards kind of tongue and grooved together. So, right, we've got this spectrum of opportunity there. So realize that first of all, there's a sliding scale. For this client, because they're building a very classical, nice house, like if you just look at this house and see the organization, and we've got this same kind of thing on the other side, One, it's a big house. It's a nice house with nice scale. There's tall ceilings. So, naturally, we're not building a cottage. We're going to kind of be in this area. And having talked to them, they kind of want to be kind of over here. Now that we've established kind of what kind of Georgian nice things we're going to do, now what does it look like? Well, what you're then doing is just like with the front of this house, where we are building hierarchy, right? And I showed you those Quinlan Terry pictures where the front might be cut stone, then rough stone over here, then siding. There's a hierarchy of materials. Same thing is going to be true when we go inside. And so the nicest room, okay, so level 1, okay, for us on this job is going to be, full paneled walls, nice cornice, and thick moldings, okay? If you look at a room like Port Royal at Winter Tour, Port Royal has moldings and door casings that stick off the wall 3 inches, okay? The scale of those moldings is massive. And that door casing might look like, have a big, band at the top, come down, be a little ogee there, and then, maybe a bead on the outside. Where this molding might be 6 inches wide, 3 inches tall, right? So a big, hefty molding. Realize that, to get a door casing that's 1.5 inches today is a big molding today. So 3 inches by 6 inches is a big door casing, and that's what, when I talk about thick moldings, base moldings on a house like this will be 2 inches thick. That might have this little ogee on the top, a little bead, and then come down, and this whole thing might be 6 inches tall, but 2 inches wide. The moldings in here are strong, they're hefty, and notice that the shapes of those things, they're bulbous and they kind of move out. So full paneled walls is level 1. Okay, level 2 is some kind of wainscot. Okay, and you can see this if you go to the Maple bedroom at Winter Tour. The Maple bedroom has a fireplace wall that is a full panel wall, but there's a wainscot that runs around the side. Port Royal has a number of rooms like that where just a wainscoting is put in. So the wainscot's put in, the cornice is not as elaborate. Cornice will be kind of level 2. This will be level 1, and then the moldings will most likely be in that same size. This would be all kind of first floor moldings, right? Because then you can build some hierarchy based on where you are in the house. Secondary spaces, bedrooms, closets, downstairs, those are going to be dressed down. So we've got the highest level here, and then level 3, right, is you get smaller versions of these moldings. So instead of being a 2-inch base, you might go an 1.5 inch base. Instead of a 3-inch door casing, you might be 2 inches or 1 3/4 inches or something like that. All the while stepping down in size and in scale because you're changing these rooms and changing these spaces. If you look at what I did on this job, you can see kind of how I was organizing and taking their plans and kind of thinking through that. One, you'll notice right here that I've got this window changing. Now what I'm doing is that I want, because remember our classical system, the way it's laid out, that system will determine how this room lays out. So the pedestal, okay, which is that lower piece that supports the column that goes up, it's always that height of the wainscot. And so that's why I always say your chair's never 36 inches, because you have to get into 15-foot tall rooms to have your pedestal at 36 inches. So I'm always saying the wainscot should be 28 to 32 inches. That's why I want the sill of this window to lower down. And look at all this space above these doors and above this windows. I'd like to pull this up so that make that window bigger, but line up the window sill so that it lines up with the wainscot height. But here, in this case, I'm doing full paneled walls in here. This is my level 1. You can see the casings that I'm designing, the wainscot that I'm encouraging, the cornice that I'm encouraging. Here's the scale that I'd like to see in this house, and this comes from Port Royal, right? There's your cornice, right? There's what this looks like, right? There's your cimation, corona, you got a modillion there, and then your bed mold under here, right? And then underneath that is your frieze, and then you've got your architrave or tinea down here. So this is quite a big apparatus, quite a big piece here, and there are examples of this at Winter Tour where you'll see examples of only a cornice like this, okay, this full thing, when you've got the cimation, corona, and bed mold, it's called a cornice, not just your crown, but your cornice. You'll see rooms with just this and a wainscot, right? You'll see this with just rooms with a full entablature. So when you include the modillions, at least in my opinion, you are really elevating kind of what you're doing and how things are being put together. The door casing, if you look at that, we got an example of a Kuchen door casing that Vossel carved, right, with a cross-setted corner, where you've got this bulbous thing. We've carved an egg and dart in it here. It steps down, you got a bead on the end. This whole thing is like 4.5, almost 5 inches wide. But this is the kind of scale that a room that's 10 foot, 12 foot tall needs in order to punctuate an opening, in order to have that kind of high level, high degree of hierarchy and quality. Now, there's a dial, guys. There's a dial that you're playing around with that you can kind of say, well, no modillions, well, no dentals, well, no, you know, it's going to be simpler and simpler. Or no, we really want that. We want that level of elevation. So this customer may decide that, you know what, I want that entry hall to be the most important, and let's really elevate that. I went to the Miles Bruton house in Charleston, South Carolina. That entry hall is incredible, right? It's very elevated. And so it may be turned out that we want that entry hall to be the most elevated. But there's a dial we're playing around with these moldings, with this size. And then down here, this would be the lowest level, but this would be level 3, in which all these moldings change in scale. But because we've got a nice Georgian house, we're probably not getting into moldings that are what you'd put in standard houses. The smallest base molding might be 1 inch thick. The smallest door casing might be 4 inches. That we're playing around with these shapes and playing around with these details. If you want more information about this, I wrote this book with Christine Frank, my friend who's now in Denver, helped me look through and helped me understand what was going on in these historic rooms at Winter Tour. But if you go to Port Royal in this book, you'll see, this is Blackwell Parlor, but you'll see I've got hand drawings of what all the moldings look like, how big they are, the wainscot in this room and how that's being put together. But there's examples of Georgian and Federal rooms in here that you can really start putting together what these historic rooms look like. You can see this classical cornice. There's a cornice with this cimation corona and a bed mold with a dental, right? And so that's kind of one of the levels of hierarchy that we're using on this house as we put it together. On this house, it really feels to me like you've kind of got the 4 levels of crown. You've got that full entablature that I was talking about. There's that modillion I was showing you and a bed mold with a dental. There's your tinea, your friezes in here. Second, formal, right, with dental and without dental, that cimation corona and bed mold. And then here in service areas and bedrooms, you might just have a crown with a beaded base or beaded something that kind of extends down into the room, right? But there's your hierarchy of cornices. You might have 4 cornices, you might have 2 or 3 casings, you might have 2 or 3 bases. But you are building a hierarchy. You are telling a story with moldings. You are communicating with moldings where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do, what's important, what isn't important. That's how you think about this Georgian room. That's how you think about putting this together, looking to the past, using a book like Traditional American Rooms, because there are examples. Winter Tour is an amazing place, 175 rooms, places from all over America, the 13 colonies from 1640 to 1860. It's just a great collection of understanding what was available, what was out there, and the historic precedent in America. But the Georgian period is very exciting. The Georgian period is very strong. And so if you're building that kind of house, if you're doing those kind of things, that's how my brain thinks about it. That's how I kind of frame it. Hopefully that helps you. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.